Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at the ports tab in Betaflight. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so once you've plugged in your drone, what we're going to do, we're going to go right down to the ports tab, which is actually the second tab in Betaflight, right under the setup tab. So click on it, and once you click on it, you'll see there's very little on it. It's just one big grid or table. And we're actually just going to start right from the left in the identifier column. So in the identifier column, what do we have? We've got the USB VCP, and the three other ones that I have are UARTs. You might have more UARTs depending on which flight controller you have, but for me, I have three. So when you actually get a empty flight controller, the whole entire grid will be empty. It's all going to be disabled and auto. So over here, where I have VTX and peripherals, that's just going to be disabled. And over here, serial RX is not going to be enabled anywhere. The only thing that will be there is in the configuration at MSP, the first one in USB VCP that will be on. But I'll explain that later. So we saw the UARTs, but what is a UART? Well, a UART actually stands for Universal Asynchronous Receiver Transmitter. And basically what a UART is a pin on a flight controller. So you've got, depending on how many UARTs you have, that's going to tell you how many pins you have on your flight controller. You can also only have one thing per UART. So in one line over here, you can only have one thing. So if I have something in serial RX enabled like this, I can't have anything else in the line. Or else, if I save and reboot that, it's just going to erase the whole entire grid, and I'll have to start from zero in the ports tab at least. So make sure you only have one thing applied for one UART. Also, something I forgot to mention at the start, UARTs, over here next to the UARTs, you actually have numbers. I have 1, 3, and 6. It's fine if you don't have like 2, 4, and 5 like I don't have them. It doesn't matter the numbers. It's just the UARTs. The amount of UARTs you have is the amount of pins you'll have on your flight controller. So don't worry about the numbers. Next thing, what I want to explain is the USB VCP. Basically, the USB VCP is the USB interface, the physical USB interface that you have on your flight controller. So the way you plug in your quad into Betaflight is via USB. That's the physical USB interface that you have on your flight controller. Over here, the reason why there's only one, there's always going to be the one thing over here in configuration and MSP enabled, is because you are actually using MSP for the USB connection between Betaflight and your quad. You might have also noticed that I can't actually unclick this switch over here. It's always enabled by default. Even if your ports tab grid is completely empty, this one will always be on. Why? Well, because before you were able to turn it off, but by turning it off, it would turn off the MSP, which would cause whoever was programming their drone just to be locked out of their flight controller. Speaking of MSP, what is MSP? Well, basically, MSP actually stands for multi-serial protocol. So basically, an MSP, what it is that anything that wants to read information or connect remotely to a flight controller, it will use MSP. So basically the reason why, like I was saying, people would get locked out of their flight controllers because they would end up switching this off for their USB connection for Betaflight, and that would block them because they do not have the USB isn't using MSP anymore, which causes them to not be able to remotely read information from the flight controller. So yeah, that's why the MSP switch for USB VCP is always turned on. All right, next, let's go to the next column, serial RX. So serial RX refers to your receiver. RX is going to be your receiver. And basically what this column is for is to choose which one is connected to your receiver. So on your flight controller, like I said, you've got pins that are called UARTs. And the UARTs are used to connect either a VTX, receiver, ESC, a bunch of other things. And only one UART will have your receiver. If you switch a bunch of them on, that's not going to do anything. It's completely useless because Betaflight will only accept to have one receiver connected to a UART. You can figure out which one it is. If you built your drone, then you probably know which pin you put it in. If you do not know which pin you connected your receiver to, you're actually going to have to just trial and error and just see which UART works for your receiver. And once you find it, you just keep it on. So me, it was UART number 6. So my serial RX will always be UART number 6, and I don't need to change that ever again. So this is very important, or else your receiver is just not going to work. Now, the next column that I actually find very important, as you can see over here, I'm skipping these two columns because I don't have anything in them and they're not necessary to be able to go flying right away. So in the peripherals column, you can see that I only have one UART that is equipped with something. Obviously, because I already have the serial RX on one of my UARTs, that UART is off limits now. I cannot use it again because, like I said before, you can only have one thing per UART. So in UART 3, I've got VTX TBS Smart Audio. So basically, Smart Audio is, well, actually there's Smart Audio and tramp telemetry. Those Smart Audio and tramp telemetry are two things that can control your VTX, because before, when we did not have this, we would have to control the VTX, so band, channel, frequency, and all of those things, with the buttons that are on your VTX on the quad itself. But ever since we got Smart Audio and tramp telemetry, we did not need to do this because Smart Audio and tramp telemetry both control the VTX, so it gives you less work. Which is why I have my VTX plugged into one of the UARTs. You actually need to have your VTX plugged into a UART. And with that, my VTX should technically work, and I have Smart Audio that can control my VTX. So that's really all there is for the ports tab. The two telemetry output and sensor input I'm not going to talk about. I might make another video about this. But because this is really a series for how to get in the air as quickly as possible, I'm only telling you what things I have equipped and what you would need for your quad to work. But yeah, so once you've figured out where your serial RX is supposed to be, and you put in your peripherals, you click save and reboot, and you should be good to go. All right, guys. This is the end of the video. I hope you liked the video. I hope you understood. If you got any questions, as usual, in the comments, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.